can see clearly now, the rain is gone. I can see all obstacles in my way.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to your show. On today's show, we will be having founder and CEO of PowerSide 123, formerly known as Charity Finders, which helps nonprofits, for-profits create worldwide class websites. He was named one of the world's leading e-philanthropy experts by the E-Philanthropy Foundation. He was given the Volunteer Service Award by President George W. Bush. He is the co-author of Internet Management for Nonprofit Strategies, Tools, and Trade Secrets. He's also an All-American springboard diver and has visited over 85 countries. He has been in the Guinness Book of World Records. He has conducted hundreds of public speaking engagements all over the world, including in virtually all United States. He has been the keynote speaker for numerous national and regional nonprofit and business conferences. He has done presentations for the management and boards of over 10,000 nonprofits, with an emphasis on helping them utilize the internet strategically to help raise more money and further their missions. Please help me welcome my good friend and public speaker, Allan Pressel. How you doing, Allan?
Great, nice to be here, Andres.
Thanks for being here, man. I appreciate it. How's your day going today?
Just great. Now it's getting better.
Excellent, excellent. How is it that you got into public speaking? What were you doing before?
Well, as a management consultant, I was doing private public speaking, meaning to clients, to prospects, to management of companies. I enjoyed it. In fact, I've always thought, if you walked me into a room of 500 strangers, had me on the way into the room pick a topic out of a hat, not one of my topics, but one of your topics you proposed, and then said, Allan, speak about that topic for an hour, I would have no problem doing that. Most people would freak out at that. On the other hand, if you asked me to meet and schmooze with the people in that room and come back with 25 business cards of people that I met, that actually intimidates me. I have trouble breaking the ice, which again is kind of the opposite of what most people do. So I've always loved public speaking, did not consider myself very good at it, and had never done any of it. So first I joined Toastmasters, which I would recommend to anyone in your audience. There's lots of Toastmasters chapters right here in Tucson.
Yes.
It helped me to develop my public speaking skills. And then ask. I mean, nobody's going to come to you and ask you to public speak. In fact, I actually came to you and asked you to do some public speaking for me shortly. But I basically identified places that I wanted to do public speaking and started asking. And if you ask in the right way, people will often say yes. Now, what I really wanted to do, my dream was to be on the public speaking circuit, where people get paid $5,000, $10,000, $20,000 per speech plus travel. They get to speak all over the country and all over the world. That did not happen, but what actually happened was better, because mostly I don't get paid for speaking. Sometimes I do, but usually not. I usually get my travel expenses reimbursed. But when I do speak, it's not salesy at all. I don't talk at all about me, my company, my services, my products, my clients, my success stories, or anything. It's all about the audience. But as a natural, organic part of that, I always get lots of leads from my audience members. So when I speak, if I get even one or two clients out of that speaking engagement, that ends up being more valuable to me than any speaking fee could ever be. So as a result, as you mentioned earlier, I've spoken in just about every state, a few countries, and do a lot of speaking, a lot of traveling, and have gotten reimbursed well for it through getting lots of clients. And most importantly, it just makes me feel really good to be able to help so many worthy nonprofits and businesses around the country.
Tell us about your first speaking experience. How did you feel?
Intimidated. Toastmasters has one activity called Table Topics, where you probably know this well. You get, 90 seconds, I think?
I believe it's
maybe
2 minutes. 2 minutes, yeah.
Somewhere between 90 and 120. You got a timer, you've got an counter, you've got people evaluating every word you say, and it's very intimidating, but it's great practice. When you do that meeting after meeting for months, maybe even years, it gives you a lot of confidence. So that was my first intimidating memory, but now I enjoy it. If you were to have me do Table Topics right now, which effectively is what you're doing in this interview, I would love it.
Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah, table topics can be very intimidating, especially if it's your first time doing it. I did see that you were a All-American springboard diver. Tell us a little bit about that. How was that?
I was very athletic as a child. I was also extremely small. I was off the charts on the low side, both height and weight. So virtually every sport I tried, I was not that good at. I love tackle football, but you can only be so good at tackle football when you're 80 pounds and everybody else is double or triple your weight. So I was 16 before I finally tried diving. every other decent diver that I have ever met had started diving when they were, 12, 10, 8, or even younger. So I only started when I was 16. Anyway, I was lucky enough to have good coaches, good programs, good pools, and ended up, making the national championships a couple times in college, becoming All-American. However, my last dive at the national championships, I was really sad because even though I had made All-American, I thought this is going to be the last dive of my career. Well, little did I know, there's lots of other ways to dive and to do other sports after you graduate college. Masters is probably the main one. So I competed in actually countries around the world for decades after that. Now I still do some diving, but there's really not a lot of pools in Tucson where there's really good diving boards. So.
Who was an inspiration to you when growing up?
So I'll take two tracks with that. Before you mentioned the word public speaker, one of my inspirations was actually Greg Louganis, who of course not only is the greatest diver of all time, in my opinion, he's the greatest athlete of all time because he is so much better than the second best diver of all time. Like if you talk about basketball, you could make a case for Michael Jordan or LeBron or Steph or Will Chamberlain or whatever, and there's a discussion to be had among the best basketball player, baseball player, football player, or whatever of all time. There is no discussion as to who is the best diver of all time. It's clearly Greg Louganis, and I was fortunate enough to be present in the pool every time he won an Olympic gold medal. I was even there when he hit his head on the board in Korea. I was about this far from him as they were examining his head.
Really?
And to me, one of the most inspirational moments of my life was when Greg Louganis, 10 minutes after that accident, got back on the board, bleeding from the head, and did perhaps the best dive of the entire Olympics, which eventually led him to his gold medal. He also was under the extreme pressure of, at that point nobody knew this, but he was gay and he had AIDS, and later when he published his autobiography and those two facts came out, he was widely criticized for not having announced those two things at that moment because there might have been danger for the divers after him going into a pool with AIDS tainted blood. There's been a lot of obstacles that Greg Louganis overcame in his life that have been very inspirational to me. In terms of the other part, public speaking, I see a lot of public speakers. I think most of them are not very good, and I can give you a long list of reasons why, very specific reasons. So when I do see a good public speaker, I'm truly appreciative of that. The best public speaker that I've ever seen is somebody you might have heard of. His name is Bill Clinton.
Okay.
So he was the keynote speaker at a national nonprofit conference that I spoke at in San Francisco. He was not only the best public speaker that I had seen, the room was just magnetized. In fact, the person who introduced him admonished the crowd not to approach the podium to take pictures because it would freak out the Secret Service. Despite that twice issued warning, at least 300 people came up to the podium to take pictures. So there were three things that I learned from President Clinton as a public speaker in terms of how to be a good public speaker. One, speak from your heart and from your head, not from note slides or cue cards. Two, focus on what the audience cares about, not your personal agenda. And three, if at all possible, you should spend at least some of your time being the leader of the free world. So I personally try to emulate two of those three. I'll let you figure out which ones. Now, by the way, I was the next speaker after him.
Really?
Talk about a hard act to follow. No one had any interest in what I had to say after that.
Wow, that's amazing. That's awesome that you actually had the opportunity to be on the same, to be this next person. That's awesome. That's something
Well, being in the same room was quite an honor.
nice. That's awesome. Now, you do work for nonprofits and profits. Tell me about one nonprofit that really was an inspiration to you that you said, wow, I really like what this nonprofit is doing for the community, the world.
Well, you've hearkened on the single reason why I founded this company, PowerSite 123. I wanted to make the world a better place, and I know that sounds really corny and trite, but I decided that instead of giving somebody a fish, I wanted to teach them how to fish, and so I decided to help as many nonprofits as I could to make the best use of the internet, websites, social media, search engine optimization, online marketing, and so on, to help them do a better job at fundraising and providing services, at getting volunteers, at running their organizations, and so on. So as a result, I've been able to work with, I've probably done private one-on-one consultations with over 12,000 nonprofits. What's been exceptionally rewarding to me is how many of those nonprofits have missions that resonate deeply with me personally. For example, I have a son with autism, so I've anytime I deal with a nonprofit that helps people with autism or special needs, it resonates with me personally. And I could give you lots of other examples, but you're asking me for one. So my grandmother, before she passed away at 105 in New York City, just about 105, was legally blind. She only became legally blind in the last 15 to 20 years of her life, but it became a very important part of her life and hence mine. We work closely with the San Diego Center for the Blind that helps people like her to be independent, to get around town, to get the services they need, to be able to function independently in their own homes, to get products and services that are important to them. For example, my grandmother had a talking clock. You basically hit it and it told you what the time was. Now nowadays we all have that, it's called our iPhones or whatever, but at the time that was groundbreaking technology. Unfortunately, my aforementioned autistic son, at one point during a visit to my grandmother's in New York City, went into her bedroom, took the clock, and threw it out her 8th floor window onto the New York City street below. Fortunately, no one was there at the time, but there was the clock shattered on the sidewalk. At the time, I remember thinking, wow, it's going to be really difficult for me to replace that clock. Well, it lands out, the San Diego Center for the Blind makes it really easy because they have a physical bricks and mortar store. They also have an e-store where folks that are blind or visually impaired or their loved ones can buy not only talking clocks, but a whole wide range of paraphernalia for blind or visually impaired people.
Nice, that's a great story, man. Thank you for sharing. I appreciate that. What do you like to do on your free time besides public speaking?
So many, but I'll mention two. One is tennis. I play a lot of tennis. I played last night in 100 and whatever degrees, and because it's so dry here, I don't mind. The other is travel. You mentioned I do a lot of traveling, and so I'll be next week. I'm going away for 7 weeks, everywhere from Alaska to Florida and in between. So, and luckily, every time I have a trip, it starts with a seed, like maybe a speaking engagement, and then that seed germinates into family, friends, fun things of all kinds.
Where can we find you online?
Well, if you're going to be in Alaska next week, then you can find me there. My website is www.powersite123.com, and I welcome any of your listening audience to contact me. My email is Allan, ALLAN, at powersite123.com, and I'll actually give out my cell number. I shouldn't be doing this on air, but it's 310-363-0095.
Thank you. And I'll also put on the link under this interview so everybody can get access to it.
I will. But please, if there's anyone out there that would like help with their nonprofit, with their business, particularly in managing it, in websites and marketing, I'm happy to give you a free consultation. I'm not asking for your business. I'm asking just for the opportunity to be able to help you on a free basis.
Excellent. Final question. What impact do you want to make on the world?
I would like to help organizations run more efficiently and help pursue their missions and help their clientele more effectively. In my prior life, I co-founded a company called iCube, which helped Fortune 500 companies make better use of technology. That was a very fun ride. We had a very successful IPO. We were acquired and merged with a company called Razorfish, which you may have heard of, and it was a very fun ride, and I got to help a lot of Fortune 500 and other similar types of organizations. As fulfilling as that was, I had this latent philanthropist in my heart that, as I said earlier, wanted to make the world a better place. When the golden handcuffs came off, I was the first of the founders that left iCube. I founded PowerSite 123, then called Charity Finders, and wanted to help nonprofits to use technology, specifically the internet and websites, to fundraise more effectively, to offer products and services, to get more clients, to get more board members, to get more volunteers, to get more people attending their events, to generate more awareness and engagement, and just to fulfill their missions more effectively. So that's my dream, and luckily I'm living the dream.
Excellent, excellent. That's beautiful, man. Well, I want to thank you for being here on your show.
But it was your show.
No, it's your show. It's actually your show.
It's your show. Sounds like Allan and Stella, who's on first.
There you go. So yeah, I just want to thank you for being on your show, and looking forward to hearing great things from you, and looking forward to working with you, man. Thanks so much. I appreciate it.
My pleasure, man. Thanks for having me.
You guys have a great day, and thank you for watching your show. Stay tuned for the next show. Have a wonderful day. Peace.